Hello everyone, welcome back to SB Living. I'm SB, and this is the place for slow, seasonal, and spiritual living where we focus on food, faith, and family in the everyday. So I'm starting us off with another roast chicken. You know that I like to make a full roast chicken at least once a week. It helps with feeding a large family with minimal effort, and it's just the most basic, most succulent thing. I like to keep it very simple. This is some garlic seasoning, some paprika for color. I like to put butter inside the skin and then just coating it with a lot of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and that's just how it's gonna roast. And again, this is something that we consistently have, and there's this beauty in consistency. Things that you make often, things that become part of your routine, something you don't have to think about, but you get consistent results all the time. And you know, as many of you know, I am not just, someone who enjoys the kitchen at home and liking to make, the home a very cozy place, a beautiful place to be in and enjoy, but that doesn't mean I'm home a lot. I am someone who, is involved in leadership in education. I am an assistant principal. A lot of what I have to do is to lead through action and lead by example. And that's tough because people don't necessarily see your actions in the way that you necessarily intend them to be. And how often are we in that position, right? As parents, sometimes our actions, our intentions don't come through the way we want. Even in our marriage, if you are in the workplace and you're working with others, sometimes it doesn't land. And you know what? That's just the way life is. And no matter what capacity you are serving in your life to others or for yourself, we're always going to be in this position where, as consistent as you are, it doesn't always land. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned in leadership. Sometimes it just isn't what you imagine it to be, and nothing's ever perfect because we are imperfect, and especially leaders, we know we are not perfect, right? And I think that is true if you are really in your parent era, if you are really deep in mothering or fathering, or if you are in caregiving at all, if you know that no matter what plans you have, sometimes they just don't work out the way you intended, and that's okay. And I think when we're in the home and we know that is at least one place where we can feel safe to make mistakes, or we could feel that we are, regular people living regular lives, there will always be a next step. There'll always be more. Nothing really lasts forever, and so that common phrase, this too shall pass, right? That's kind of what you need to lean on sometimes. So the reason why I share these thoughts with you while I'm making these simple dishes is because, I don't know about you, but when I'm in the kitchen after a long day, or I'm in that quiet moment where I'm just preparing the meal, it does give me some time and space to think about what has been going on, the feelings I've been kind of sorting through, or just some meditations on things that have been on my mind, and you might be the same way. I like to always try to connect or decompress about what has happened throughout the day while I'm in the kitchen, while I'm cooking, because a lot of these simple meals don't really require a lot of thinking. You can roast the potatoes, roast the vegetables, and roast the chicken. It doesn't require a lot. It just requires some time, and that time really allows you to sort through everything that's been on your mind. And, if you do have a lot of responsibilities, if you do have a lot of things that you're constantly taking care of, and listen, if you're a parent or a caregiver who works, that already is so much, right? And it's these moments and these pockets of time that you find that allow you to really think about what has been going on in your mind. And this concept of leadership has really stuck with me this past week, because between the readings that we've had, I like to do my daily scripture readings and see how that connects to not only the work that I do for my students and for the children in my community, but also my own children at home or my own marriage. This leadership idea is really coming to the fore because in small ways we can lead those around us through the good that we would wish for others. And I think effective leadership is that, right? When we are in positions where we are trying to provide and trying to nurture and trying to lead, there is this concept of, doing what's right, showing what's right, and wishing for what is right for others. And, that's kind of hard to do when you're constantly balancing everything that you need to do just to get life done, right? I mean, think about all the responsibilities that we have. Think about all the things that you would have to take care of on a daily basis. Add to that you are also someone that others look up to, whether it's your own kids, whether it's your spouse, whether it's people at your workplace or at an organization or anybody that you interact with in some way, shape, or form. You can be a beacon or a shining light for others. And that is everyone's leadership potential. And I urge you to think of yourself as such as well, because we all have that ability to do so. Even if it's small things like constantly showing up at home in whatever way your talents allow you to be, whether that's in the kitchen like myself, or that is in curating a beautiful home, or if that is at work being the best person you can be. I urge you to think of yourself as someone who can really lead others towards a beautiful and wonderful way. So the thing about being consistent is also giving yourself the ability to just do what you need to do sometimes and care less about it being perfect and more about just getting it done. I think we have to pick and choose our battles here, right? And I think on weeknights when you just want to get some good food on the table, use what you have and use some shortcuts. You're never going to find me sun drying and roasting my own tomatoes. I know where to get them, and I have a Costco. So it is something that I know I can depend on. I have several jars of pickled or fermented foods in the fridge that I could whip out and toss with some pasta at any time. And those sun-dried tomatoes, those are a really good choice. Just toss it again with some extra oil, some onions. I'm going to put in some broccoli in there just to roast. And after that gets all amalgamated together and mixed and the flavor just builds, it's just about boiling some pasta and tossing it all together. I really suggest trying out, if you haven't, any fermented foods that you might have found in either like prepared aisles. I think it's hard to find them or mix them up with prepared foods, and not necessarily prepared foods. These are pickled foods. So sun-dried tomatoes is one example. You can do the artichokes that you could find packed in oil. Those are really good to have as well. Olives, not just the black olives in the can, but the actual marinated olives in jars. Those are really nice to have to add to salads or to add to pasta. You could get them with the pits, without the pits, whatever you like. You can get peppers, not just the roasted peppers, which I think you should always have anyway, but there are different ways that you can buy them. And I think it's worth looking in the aisles just for a few more seconds to see what the options are, because sometimes we don't see what's out there, and it could actually make a huge difference in your pantry so that you have just a variety of foods on hand that you could mix together. So when I'm looking to build a very simple pasta dish, I always like to have some pesto on hand just to flavor the pasta before adding anything else, especially since I'm not putting in the work to make a deeper sauce. That pesto is going to coat all of the pasta noodles and make sure that the pasta itself has flavor and not just some bland noodles that are paired with vegetables. I think that's the secret here. You're just layering different things that you would have otherwise had without it making it complicated. Again, not necessarily cooking everything. There are times where I use store-bought pesto. I could go deep in the freezer for the homemade pesto that I've made from my own basil leaves, whatever it is, and whatever is easier. It is a really nice way of putting something quick on the table that's nutritious, but also has flavors that, you wouldn't otherwise have had in other meals. So there are some times during the year where there's some large gardening tasks that have to be done, and this is one of those times. And again, knowing when you have to do things, knowing that there's a time and place for those things to happen, sometimes allows you the calm that you need to get it done instead of being overridden with anxiety. It's just the time. It is the time to do these things. And another leadership lesson I've learned, there's a time for everything, and when it comes, you're ready. We can all be ready to accomplish these tasks. What I'm doing here is I'm digging up all of the irises that have just been exploding in this little plot that I buried them in a couple of years ago. And I'm separating them because, too much of a good thing often crowds potential for growth, right? And again, you could apply that to all parts of life. Too much of a good thing sometimes doesn't allow you to explore other possibilities. So I got to separate them and decide where I'm going to plant the extras. But doing this allows them to breathe a little bit. It allows the soil to breathe. It also allows me to see and group them by size so that I can put the ones that are meant to be together intentionally together. This did take me a little bit of, I would say about 2 hours to do. Just getting them out of the soil, cleaning them up, separating them, untying the tubers, and then deciding who I'm going to give extras to. I did wind up donating to a neighbor, and where the other tubers are going to go. In the spring, I'm going to have to wait and see how the replanting goes, but irises are very hardy, and if you do have these type of perennials, and if you need to divide them, give yourself some time, but it's well worth doing it. So with the cooler season comes soup time, and I'm always trying to make at least one big pot of soup every week. This time around is a chili, which is like a minestrone that I like to make, but I'm just going to add some meat to it. I'm also going to layer some different spices to it, so wait till the end to see what I do. And I think it makes a huge difference. It was a tip that I learned from a friend of mine. So again, the base of any good soup, whether it's minestrone or a vegetable soup or this chili, is a good base. So your onion, your garlic, your carrots, I'm going to add some peppers in there. Again, It's just what I had in the fridge, and allowing that to just settle in the oil, warm through, get soft with some salt and pepper. While I'm layering everything else, it's just gonna make that base so that as it cooks, everything is just going to melt together. Okay, so a trick here is if you don't have ground meat, but you have hamburger patties, go ahead and mush them up because they're the same thing, just in different shapes. So no shame here, right? I'm again using what I have. I had random leftover hamburger patties that were in the freezer, defrosting them really quickly and crumbling them up. And all of a sudden I have the ground meat that I needed for my chili. And it's just too easy. I think we often overlook the ways we can use what we have, right? So if you haven't done that trick yet, please do it. I am going to add in some of these spices that I'm showing you here, just a little bit at a time. No crazy measurements. I would say about a teaspoon each if you're going to go that way, but use, again, the types of flavorings that you like. I'm going for a smoky flavor here, especially since I'm adding in different kinds of beans. I'm adding chickpeas, cannellini beans, and kidney beans. And once that's in, I'm going to take out some of the plum tomatoes from this larger can. I'm going to use the actual bean can as a measuring container, if you will, just so that I get everything even. And once I plop those in there, I'm just going to mush them up a little bit directly in the pot and simmer away. Once the lid goes on, I could do other things, and this is going to become a really nice meal for an otherwise cooler evening. So here's the trick, guys. Right before you want to serve it, add a bit of cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg to the chili right before serving. I'm going to repeat that again. Don't do it while you're cooking it. Do it right before you're going to put it in the bowls. And the freshness of these spices, it just, I can't even describe it. It gives I wouldn't say tangy flavor, but it just brightens everything up. And I really need you to try it. Please try it. Just a dash of cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg right before you serve the chili. It makes it. It really does make it. So serve it with some cornbread, put some cheese on top of that chili, and you have a filling and healthy, nutritious meal. And again, try the spice trick. It is something that I highly recommend. So there's not really a regular rotation of meals that I make every week. There are some. I will always make that roast chicken, right? I'll always have a pot of tomato sauce going. But outside of those very few things, there's really no telling what dinner's going to be unless I see what I have in the house that week, or even that day if I wasn't able to meal plan the way I needed to. And so a meal like this that you're seeing right now is a simple pan fry on the stove, ready in under 30 minutes type of a meal. The thing about this is that if you are intentional with the flavors and the marinade, at least for this chicken breast that I have here, I'm doing like a basic Mediterranean style marinade, some lemon juice, salt and pepper, a little oregano. I am going to put in a little adobo as well, just to have an extra kick. It is what is going to flavor the meat. And then essentially it's just in the pan, vegetables also in another pan, 1, 2, 3, and it's done. And the thing about this is that this is not so much a meal or a recipe, but more of a style of cooking. And it's through the style of cooking that I hope to, pass down to my daughters, and also just to keep alive. I feel like a lot of this fresh type of cooking is sometimes seen as a burden. It's not necessarily a burden. It's just, you just need fresh food, and perhaps a bit more than you think, in order to feed an entire family. So yeah, shopping trips are usually a lot of bags, because it is a lot of fresh food, but they all get cooked and they all get used. So it's good money, well worth it. The preparation of the food is also another process that, when you see it, you also want to be a part of it. This type of thing that you're seeing right now with me and the beans, when the kids just come and say, hey, can I do that too? It becomes like, sure, yeah, you can join in, and it becomes a family moment, becomes a teaching moment. And I can't help but think about how that's just another level of leadership. Like on my desk at work, there's this quote that I refer to a lot. And it says that leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence, but also making sure that that impact lasts in your absence. And that's a very powerful quote for me, because I'm not with my kids 24 hours a day. They're not with me. They're in school. I'm at work. I'm also not with my students 24 hours a day. When I'm home, I'm not with them. And I think about how much I influence others just by being who I am, and the actions that I make every day, and my interactions with people. We all influence each other, and I think sometimes we lose that perspective, because just by being a human being, you are someone that can either have a positive effect on somebody else, a negative effect, a neutral effect, any effect, right? And you want to make sure that whatever the time that you spend with others, it is adding to their life. It is bringing joy to others. It's maybe teaching others. They're getting something out of the time that they spent with you. And when we think about it that way, we become much more reflective about who we are, but also more intentional about what we do with ourselves, with the way we act, the words that we use. They all mean something. And something that I have found to be a little bit lacking in today's mindsets. And, I don't even think it's that intentional for people to forget anymore. It's just this inundation of all of these stimuli around us. We forget that it's really us that's important. Each and every one of us is an important part of society, and it's up to us to make sure that that community that we're a part of, that the family that we're a part of, becomes that much better because of us. So don't think that your role and your presence or how you are doesn't matter to anybody. It matters a great deal, more than you think. So with this meal, like you see, it was some chicken, some beans, and these chickpeas that simply tossed with some onions. A very simple meal, but a nourishing one, and one that had simple flavors with it. This can be done on any weeknight or any time where you're just looking to put something good on the table. And as long as you have meat defrosted and some vegetables ready to go, it's a matter of just putting it on the table and serving it. So with this meal and with this video, I hope I inspired you to think of yourself a bit more than maybe you're already thinking about, and know that you are a very important person, not just to the people around you, but to the people who haven't met you yet. Please know that that's just as important as anything else that you do in life. Let this video inspire you and motivate you, and I will see you next week.